Hey guys, NV here, and in this video I would like to show you how to create your first layer. Now I am going to be extremely basic with this, that way we don't get ahead of ourselves and get a little crazy and too complex, because with these layers you can get crazy with them, you really can. So I'm going to keep it very basic and simple. So let's go ahead and load up one of our older projects here, and I'm going to select my first document and I'm going to load that up. I'm going to go ahead and click Fit Screen. And in our Layers palette right here, we're going to go ahead and click down here at the bottom, the square with the plus icon in it, plus sign, and go ahead and click on that. And there's your layer. Okay. Now, realistically, I could just quit the video here and be done with it, but I'm not going to do that. That's just cruel. So that we've got our layer 1 here. And if we hold Control and click that one more time, that puts layer 2 underneath. Okay. Now it automatically labels these, because if we keep clicking this, I'm just going to go ahead and do it just to show you. It just automatically starts labeling them out, numbering them out. I'm going to undo that by holding Control and tapping the Z a few times. And I'm going to undo all of those because I'm going to show you the hotkey, or another way of doing it. You can Alt click on this layers icon right here, and that will bring up our layers property. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of that though. And if you hold Control Shift and tap the N key, that will bring up our layers property as well. So I'm going to keep it layer 1 because it's not gonna it's gonna change later. Color mode, you can leave it none, or you can go ahead and add a color to this if you want. I'm gonna go ahead and make it a color, why not? And normal mode, I'm gonna keep like it is. Opacity at 100 and click OK. And as you can tell now, it's color coded. It normally would look like this with just no color at all. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do the alternative method and Control click this so we can get our layer 2. But if you notice, it didn't apply a color because we can set it or remove it. So if I right click on that layer, on layer 2, and I can make it any color I want, like so. You can also undo the color by saying no color. Okay. So let's go ahead and add a shape to this. Now, there are multiple ways to make layers. If you remember the text document we did the other day, that's a text layer. Everything in Photoshop is layer oriented, regardless of what you're doing in Photoshop. Whether it be fill adjustment layer, mask layers, it's all a layer. Even photos in Photoshop is a layer. I just wanted to point that out. And let's go ahead and tap the U key on the keyboard. That gives us our shape tool here. I already had it to a circle. We can click and hold, by the way, and that'll bring up this menu. Or you can hold Shift and go through, tap the U key and cycle through them, just like so. But let's go ahead and select a square. Let's change the color up here in the color fill, color here. And let's go to the color box, click on that, and let's make it a soft red. Click OK. Hold Shift key, click and drag out. If you hold the Alt key at the same time, this kind of keeps it proportionate. And I'm going to keep it about right there. I'm going to leave the properties here default. And now you notice it doesn't say layer 1 and it removed our color. It's because we changed the layer, okay? We can name this, or we can just name it square. And you can do that by double clicking it and calling it square. Just like so. Press enter, we'll confirm it. And we're going to select layer 2. And let's also color code this real quick. Going to red. And let's color code this one. Select layer 2. Hold Shift key, and if you notice the shape tool here, hold Shift key and tap the U key 2 times. And there's our ellipse tool, shape tool. And I want to change the color of that to green. And so we're going to go up to green of some sort. Let's say there, and click OK. Hold Shift, click, drag out, and then hold Alt. And that kind of sizes it up, as you can tell. Make it a little bit bigger than the square and release. Again, keeping that default. And let's change this to a green as well. Let's go to our move tool, which is a V key on our keyboard. And let's align this with our document, okay? So let's hold Control and tap the A key on our keyboard. This gives us our marching ants. And let's select the square and go up to alignment options here. And let's horizontally and vertically center this into the document by clicking the center here, okay, of these alignments. And we'll select our circle and do the same thing. And hold control and tap the D key on your keyboard will deselect it. And let's double click on ellipse right here and name it circle and press enter. So now we have our shapes and they're layer shapes, okay? Shape layers, sorry. So if I went here and added a text, let's say white and let's say layers and control and enter will confirm it. And let's align it to our document again. Control A, tap the V key on the keyboard and go to the horizontal and vertical center alignment. Control D to deselect. And now we have our layers, shape layers and text layer. And now I'll show you some cool things about it and how it works. What we're going to do first is deselect that by checking this I, unchecking that to hide the text layer. Let's select our square layer, hold the Alt key on the keyboard, and just move it between these two layers until you see this little arrow with the box on it. That's going to clip it into the circle. It clips it into the bottom layer, the layer below it. And that's called clipping mask, okay? And you can do the same with the text realistically, but it will only work with the square and whatever the square is clipped to. So both of these technically would be clipped to the circle. So if I made this font bigger by going to the character and saying 100, as you can tell, it doesn't go outside of the circle. And I'm going to undo that by holding control and tapping the Z key, and I'm going to uncheck that. But before I do that, if you hold control and alt and tap the G key on the keyboard, that will unclip it, and tapping it again will clip it. Nice little hotkey for you. So, and you can move this around. So hold control and tap the T key, and you get these little arrows, this little rotation arrows here on the outside. Make sure it's on the outside of the box here. And you can hold shift and click and drag around like so. Control and enter will confirm it. So you can kind of see it taking form of a cool little design. I'm going to go ahead and unclip this real quick just to show you something. So Control Alt G. You notice how I did my logo. It's got the NV in there. Well, it's similar to what I would do with this, okay? So let's say I want my text to appear like that. Let's make our text a little bigger. Say about 90. A little too big, but you'll get the point. Like I showed you earlier, just clipping it into it by holding Control Alt G. And that's kind of how I did it, okay? Pretty much that easy. And it's simple, and you can do some really cool stuff with this. I'm going to undo that and move the layer above it by holding Control and the open bracket on the keyboard. You can move it around with the close bracket, moving them at the bottom, or again, open bracket will move it back up. So that's how you can kind of move your layers around without actually having to physically do it, but you can do it with no problem. I don't mind. I do either one. I go back and forth with the hotkeys and manually doing things. And you can also move the square above the circle above the square and clip it into the square as well, as you can tell. Not that impressive, but it's still cool looking. I'm going to undo that and go back up to, and by the way, I'm holding the Alt key, and this will cycle through the layers like so, okay? So you can specifically select which layer you want. And I'm going to clip that in there by holding Control Alt G again and tapping that into the circle. And that's basically how layers work. So we can blend this square layer into the circle layer if we want. And you can get very creative with it. Do the same with the text by clipping it in there by holding the Alt key. That's manually way of doing it. And you can do the same thing. It'll blend, but it's white, so it's not going to do too much. So yeah, it's whatever this layer's onto. So if this layer is clipped into the bottom layer, so this layer will also do the same as this. Just wanted to show you that so you are completely aware. I'm going to undo that though and put that back to normal. And that's it, guys. That's pretty much basics of the layer navigation and how to add your own layer. Okay. Now, if I go down here and just click layer, then we got back to layer again. You know, an empty layer. It's nothing on it. Regardless of what we do. Even if we clipped it, it wouldn't do anything. We can also go to a fill and adjustment layer here. Icon here and go all the way up to add a gradient if we want, or a pattern. Okay. And let's just keep it like it is. I don't know whatever yours is, just keep it okay at default and click OK. And we can clip that into it by Control Alt G. And now that's officially applied into that. So the power of layers are pretty amazing of what you can do. Again, you can blend these into that shape, just like that. So it's some really cool stuff. It's just no end to the possibilities of what we could do here. And I think it's pretty fascinating. It's some really cool stuff. Oops. So let's go ahead and take our layers document, and let's save it. Going to File and Save As, because we're going to save it as a separate work file. Save on your computer. And we're going to name this My First Layer. And click Save. And OK. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap the video up now. And until next time, I will see you in another video.